Hi guys, welcome to my first video for the How to Read music series. This video is about how to understand the clef. So by the end of this video you will be able to identify and read the notes on the stave. We will be covering different clefs and we will be looking at what flats and sharp signs mean. The most common clef is the treble clef. You will notice that the notes are placed onto 5 lines, which is called a stave. For the treble clef, the notes are placed like this. So, when reading the treble clef, you can use reference points to help make it quicker to know which notes are where. These are the reference points I find easiest to use. The note underneath the bottom line of the stave is D. This G, the middle line is B, and that the top line is F. As well as this, you can look at the first ledger line, which is an A. Ledger lines are additional lines either above or below the stave. For the treble clef, the first bottom ledger line is a C and the top first ledger line is an A. So, to read ledger lines, use your reference points and go up the alphabet between A to G. So, the first steps you need to take: 1. Use your reference points and then count using the same method as before from A to G. So if we wanted to find out what the top ledger line notes are, we can use the top line reference of F and then count up. So we have F, G, A, B, C and D. Then for the lower ledger lines, we know that the note underneath the stave is D, and then we count downwards. So we have C, B, A and G. The main purpose of the clef is to make it easy to read notes. So instead of reading lots of ledger lines, you can just change the clef. Middle C. Middle C can be seen as the overlap between the treble clef and the bass clef. This is middle C. And as you can see, middle C is the first bottom ledger line on the treble clef and the first ledger line above the stave for the bass clef. So this C crosses over into the bass clef. If you were playing the piano, the left hand plays the notes in the bass clef and the right hand plays the notes in the treble clef. So here is a diagram showing where the notes are placed on the stave for the bass clef. Using reference points for the bass clef is very useful. I use the bottom line, which is a G, the middle line, which is a D, the line in between the two dots for the bass clef sign is an F, and then the first ledger line is middle C. Here are some other reference points which are commonly used for the bass clef. The alto and tenor clef are less commonly used than the treble and the bass. However, some instruments need to use the alto and tenor clef because it fits their range better. This means that they won't have to read loads of ledger lines. To read these clefs, use the same methods as before. So find a reference point and then count up and down between A and G. I use C as the reference point and count from there. So here is where middle C is found on the tenor clef. As you can see, middle C is found where the tenor clef sign dips. For the alto clef, middle C can be found on the middle line of the stave. The alto and tenor clef look very similar, but they are positioned differently on the stave, as shown in the diagrams below. These are not as commonly used as treble and bass clef, as I've mentioned before, so I would suggest remembering where to find middle C and then counting from there. So now we're going to go on to looking at what sharps and flat notes mean. So sometimes a note might be sharpened, like this. Note that the sign always goes before the note. So the hashtag sign is used to make a note sharp. If the note goes through the stave line, for example, like the G, the middle of the sharp should do the same. So we can see with the G sharp, the G note goes through a stave line and the middle of the hash also goes through the stave line. It's the middle of the hash that tells you what note has been sharpened. So here's another example. We can see F. Now F goes in between stave lines, and similarly the middle of the sharp also goes between the stave lines. So notes can also be flattened, like this example of E flat. So the sign for a flat note is a slanted B. So the middle of the B tells us which note is flattened. So looking at E flat, we know that E goes through a stave line, so the middle of the B also needs to go through a stave line. And then here we've got this example of A flat, which is on the bass clef, and the middle of the A goes in between the stave lines, and so does the flat sign. So where are sharp notes located on a keyboard? So to find a sharp note, you locate the note and then move one space to the right. For example, if we're trying to find D sharp, we would find D on the keyboard and then move one space to the right, which is a black key, D sharp. And again, if we're finding G sharp, find G, move one note to the right, which is G sharp. Sometimes you might have written in E sharp, which all you have to do is find E and then move one space to the right, which is F. So some of the notes don't have a black note next to them, so you just use the white note. So where are flat notes located on the keyboard? Very similar to finding sharps, you locate the note, but this time you move one space to the left. So finding D flat, we move one space to the left, which is a black key. Same with G, move back is a G flat. And then with F, if you ever find an F flat written, you just move one space to the left, which is an E. And again, some of the notes don't have a black note next to them, so you just use the white note. So the black keys on the keyboard are both flats and sharps depending on the note. So the one highlighted here in red, the black key is a C sharp for the C, but also a D flat for the D. It's the same note, but with two names. The reason for this will be explained more in the next video where we look at key signatures. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below, and don't forget to check out my Instagram account, MK Sounds.